Good evening, welcome to New Horizons. If you do have a mobile phone, we'd like to put it on silent, please, thank you. Right, huge welcome to Truth Juice Dave. Happy to record from a hospital visit with the creation, God and property. As the blurb says, a complex subject. Covered tonight, a creator, our creator, and our relationship to it, him, her, our sovereignty, if we have any, us as property. Are other entities clamouring to claim a stake on us? Who might they be? Could there be advantages in being aware of any of the above, or not? Let's find out. Please welcome Truth Juice Dave.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for coming. Beautiful weather out there. I don't know what you've come to listen to me for, but here we go. The last time I was here, I can't remember how long ago was it. Anybody remember? 6 months. Has anybody not seen me do any talks? Right. Is anybody here for the first time? Right, my path has took me on a journey, has took me in and out of just about everything there is. And it's got me to this point now. And I never ever thought in a million years that I would be standing here on a pulpit preaching the word of God. Honestly, goodness me, no way. I mean, well, it's more than 6 months, I think it's, yeah. But anyway, there's no way before Christmas this year I'd have thought I'd be doing anything like I'm doing, but I'm doing it, and I'm getting results. And it's this sort of stuff that started me off on this journey. I mean, one of the first talk, or the first talk we'd done, was on subliminal messages within films, advertising. This slide, can you all see it, by the way? Can you all see it clearly? This slide is of a point of sale item at Bargain Booze in Litherland, near to where I live. And there's a subliminal message, obviously it's for kids, it's gobstoppers. And if you have a look at the camel, the back of the camel, you can quite clearly see he's showing his testicles. Now this is aimed at 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids in an off licence, where they're supposed to be selling alcohol and cigarettes to adults. So they're obviously aiming this at kids. There's no other reason for it. And if you have a look at it, you've got a camel with a big pair of testicles, and it's called Camel Balls Extra Sour. Well, if you look at the word sour, it looks like sex from a distance, but anyway. And then on the bottom left, to the left of the big circle of feeding, it says sin-free. It's actually sin and then gluten-free, but it says sin-free. And of course you've got the camel's balls, which are the gobstoppers, which are chocolate filled, or chocolate coloured. On the inside, the white. And if they suck even harder, you'll get to the red stuff in the middle. That's a bit sick, isn't it? What a sick world we live in. But just wanted to bring that to your consciousness that if you want to have a look at me talk, it's up on the internet. I don't know how many people have watched it, but I've moved on since then. And it's brought me to this situation now. How many here believe in God? How many don't believe in God? So it's about 50-50. So, and then how many are undecided? Well,
I've decided to.
Well, first of all, what you need to do is take a think. First, get yourself one of these books, by the way, and get yourself that book. Right, that's the Royal Law by L.O. Blake. Habeas, the guy in London. When I seen his talk, I went and bought it, and it sort of put me on the path of wanting to read that. First of all, you've got to think about what your interpretation of God is. Right? I think the last time I spoke, it was critical mass, and it was quite a big turnout actually. And somebody said, there's only one God in the Bible. There isn't. There's hundreds of gods in the Bible. There's hundreds of gods on the earth today. Let me try to explain what a God is. One of the things is creation. Now, when a God has created something, it has the absolute right and power to create laws for its own property. And also, it has the absolute power and right to enforce its laws upon that property. So, they're the properties of a God. So, there's a lot of free men on the land. Anybody a free man on the land here? There must be one. Okay. Is there any sovereign men here? Sovereign free men on the land? Does anybody know what a free man on the land is, by the way? No, does anybody doesn't know what a free man on the land is? You've not heard of free man on the land? Free man on the land is a consciousness that's going around at the present moment and has been for the last 10, 15 years, where people are saying, no, I'm a free man, I don't follow your laws. And they're getting pasted in the courts and they're ending up in jail. Does anybody not know about the person? Please say so now. Does anybody know what the legal definition of a person is? Does anybody not know? Sorry. The legal definition of a person. Right, the legal definition of a person is, can be summed as this: an object of duties, liabilities and rights. That's the legal definition of a person. Now, you ask most people and say, oh, you're a person, they'll say yes, without even knowing what the word person is. Now, there is such a thing as a human person. Right? There's no such thing as a man person, but there is a human person. There's a natural person, a legal person, a bankrupt person, a private person, a public person, and so many other kinds of persons. Now, a person, actually, if you go to Webster's definition, and most of the definitions in Noel Webster's dictionary he got from here. And essentially a person is a mask of an actor on a stage. So if you say you're a person, you're saying you're a mask. Now, you're not a person, you're all men and women, old, young, whatever. However, you have a person attached to you through a document called the birth certificate. It's a legal fiction created when your mum and dad went and registered you with the Crown. Now, the Crown, strangely enough, is not a person, right? Don't think the Crown is a person. Only persons can be prosecuted and brought before the courts. So the Crown cannot be brought before the courts. The Crown is above the law. The Crown makes the law. Now, your person was created the day your mum and dad went in and registered your birth with the Crown, or government, or whatever you want to call it. I prefer to call it the Crown. And they created this person, which is the document. Now, because it's created that person, it has ownership rights to it, so it can make rules up for that person, and it can enforce those rules against that person. Now, so we have God the Creator, who's created man in his own image after his own likeness. Both man and woman created them both. Actually, if you go to Genesis, is it 1 or 2? It says, on the 6th day, God created man in his own image. Come, let us create man in our image after our likeness. Both male and female, he created them. And then, Genesis 3, I think, he said, the Lord God then created Adam from the dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils, and man became a living soul. So at the point when Adam was made, which is the second, it could have been the third creation of man, but certainly the second creation of man, Adam was not a man anymore. He was a living soul. And so are all you. None of you are men and women. You are living souls. Now, I can go into greater depth about that, but it's up to you to read and interpret the Bible the way it's supposed to be. All the churches, the organised churches in the world, are not telling you the truth about the words that are in this book. Right, the word human does not appear in the Bible, ever. The closest thing we have to it is he commanded me human. It has persons, it has men, it has women, it has males, it has female, but the word human is not there. Why is that? Well, the earliest interpretation of Hugh means the invoked one, the one that's beckoned. So let's have a look. Hughie, Navid, nice to see you. Hughie, Hughie. Hughie, you go to Hughie when you're trying to invoke someone. Well, that's Hugh, the invoked man, Hugh man. That's your Human Rights Act and your Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms from 1948. Nowhere does it say man, it says Hugh man, which means the invoked man, the invoked person man. You've got no rights whatsoever as far as the Human Rights Declaration is concerned. Neither have you got no rights as far as the Human Rights Act is concerned, and the next load of nonsense that they're going to be back coming down the road with, it's a load of nonsense. What I'm going to reveal tonight is that great man of sin. Has any people have read the Bible? Surely, who's read the Bible? I know you have. Anybody else? Right? Yeah. Are you aware of this man of sin? Right? My interpretation, and I haven't read the whole Bible. Don't think I'm an expert. I am not. Right? But my interpretation of the man of sin appears to be something that we have. Something that we have. And the Jesus consciousness cannot come back until that man of sin is being revealed. I'll reveal that to you as we go along. Now, I don't know whether Jesus was an actual man walking through 2,000 years ago, or I don't know whether it was a consciousness that was on the earth at that time. But if it was a man, he was certainly a fantastic, spiritual, loving man. And his sayings and his deeds were fantastic. And I don't think anybody can argue with that. Every one of you here knows the Ten Commandments, do you not? Can we leave the questions till later on, the second half, if you don't mind? I've got loads to go through. So we all know the Ten Commandments, don't we? Well, what's the first commandment? Let's have a look. Shall we? I tell you what, we'll go into this first, right? Anybody here own their own car? Please put your hand up if you do. Does anybody here own their own house? Well, I've got news for you. You don't own anything.
You're just a registered keeper. Oh, stop that.
Right. Who owns the car and who owns the house? Well, I thought it was the DVLA, but guess what? It's not. Because your God, the United Kingdom is your God. Because United Kingdom created you, right? But your God knows that there's a superior God. And the United Kingdom knows it can't own anything.
United Kingdom created person.
That's right, yeah. No. Yeah, but if you act like a person, you are a person.
That's true.
Right? So, I mean, look at Superman, Christopher Reeves. Everybody thinks Christopher Reeves was Superman. He wasn't. He was a man. Or a living soul. Now, your government and the Crown recognises the existence of the superior creator of all things. The only thing that it owns is the title to the land. Doesn't own the land. No, 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 no. Why do you think it's so hard to get shut of gypsies off the land? Right? They don't profess to have title to it. They say, no, we're just travelling through, just passing through. We're going to stay here and dwell here for as long as we want. And then you get obstropulous councillors and all the rest, and politicians say, oh, we can't have them doing that. It might wake the people up to what's going on. That's what that's all about, but they still have to go through the process. Unfortunately, the travellers, the gypsies, whatever we want to call them, or whatever they want to be called, don't know the law in here. If they did, when they settled in a place, they would stay there. And nobody would bother them, right? So the state own your car title, the state own your TV title, the state own your title. They don't own you, they own your title, the person, Mr. Jerry Rafferty, or whatever the case may be, right? That's what they own. That's why it says on your birth certificate, cannot be used as evidence of identification, full stop, Crown copyright. They own the title to that person. You are a partaker in a fraud. When you use that name, you are partaking in a fraud, and you are turning your back on the real creator, whatever that is. Whatever that is, whatever that God is, you're turning your back on the creator's laws, which are in there, by the way, right? That's us all, isn't it? Like you have something like that on your YouTube videos, don't you? Well, there's another one. Right, who and what is God? Are there more than one God? Do you believe in God? I've asked you these questions. So yes, the God that you serve is the United Kingdom. And it's under a bigger God called Europe. Right? Because have a look on your passport. It says European citizen and then United Kingdom passport. Right? I don't know when they changed them. Rob Bollocks did have a better idea than what I have. But you are a citizen, the property of the European Union. Oh, sorry, your title is the property of the European Union. You are mind controlled. That's what government means, mind control. You're all under mind control because you all pay taxes, you all drive cars and buy road tax, you all get an MOT, you all pay your council tax bills, you all pay a fine, you all pay a parking ticket, you pay taxes, you pay this, that and the other because you are serving your God, the United Kingdom, and its superior God, the European Union. Now, like it or lump it, they're the facts. They're the facts of the matter. So, and that's why there's loads of gods in there. That's why God says to whoever it is, go over there and fight them. And here's, take with you 134,000 men. And then, well, according to the interpretations that the church will tell you, the same God is on the other side saying, take 200,000, you've got to take 200,000 to kill them. Right? It's the God, it's the nation itself. Right? Your whole understanding of what's in there is corrupt. Because you don't know what a person is, you don't know what a God is, and you don't know who the true God is. You don't understand the Ten Commandments. Nobody here knows the Ten Commandments, understands it. Sorry, maybe one more than me. What's the first commandment? Anybody tell me? Sorry? I am the Lord your God who brought you from the house of Egypt out of slavery, and blah blah. You shall have no other gods before me. Now, if there was no other gods, why would God bother saying, you shan't have any other gods before me? The fact is, he knew there were other gods, and Egypt was a god, and it held its own property. And he brought them out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, because they were all bondsmen. They were all Egypt's property. And Egypt enforced its own law on its own property. And God said, come out of Egypt. And guess what? He says that all the way through the Bible. Come out of Egypt. Especially look at Revelations, which is what we're in now, by the way, in case you haven't realised and woken up. These are end times that we're looking at now. But it's all good, because you're all here, and you can look at this book yourself. What I will suggest you do is have a listen, first of all, to Marcus, the Servant King.info. Sorry, no, MarcusServantKing.info, and have a look at his videos. And then I suggest you listen to Sheldon Emery, a pastor, and he's got hundreds and hundreds of audios up there on the internet. Sheldon Emery Library. And start listening to that stuff. And he'll give you the proper interpretation about what the Bible's saying, and back it up with from one text to the other, from back forth. Because when we're looking at it, we are not trained by the quadrivium and the trivium. If you don't understand what they are, and you're thinking, I wonder what he's talking about there. This will be up in a couple of days, I imagine, will it, Alec? Yeah. Go over the talk again and pick out trivium and quadrivium, and then you'll understand that you have been indoctrinated instead of educated. You have been trained by the education system to do the jobs that you were trained to do, and not to think, and not to educate yourself, and to keep yourself watching television and football and all the rest of that nonsense, right? Because the country, the society do not want you to know this stuff, because if you do and you start realising where you are, what's been happening to you, you're going to go bloody bananas, right? See where we are from it. Right, okay. The creator is the owner unless he transfers all ownership rights to another. Now, your God, your real gods, are your mum and dad, because they created you. They were your creator, your mum and dad, your natural mum and dad. Then after that, they had their mum and dad, right the way back to Adam, right, who was the original living soul. I'm not going to say man, I'm going to say living soul. You're not living soul. You're not men, you're living souls. And then we include women in that as well, by the way. And the property that your government wants to steal is that. That's the property, because that's the only thing that gives this state that we're in now any life. Without those beautiful things that are getting born on a daily basis and have to be registered before it's 42 days old, if it doesn't get that to happen, then it's got no property, it's got no ownership rights, and it'll die. As Marcus says, it's an ongoing pyramid scheme. people sign up to it every day of the week, and people are leaving it every day of the week, the ones that die. I was at my friend's house to look after her. She's 87 today, and she died, sadly. Her friend died, and there was a private ambulance there. A private ambulance? Why private? Why have they put private? Why haven't they just put, meat wagon or something like that on it? But why private? Have a look at the word private yourself and you start to understand. It's not public property anymore. On my mother's and father's marriage certificate, my father's father was dead, right? And it said, occupation, seaman, in brackets, deceased. Now, deceased, that's an oxymoron. The word D means stop, ended, finished. Ceased means to stop, end, finish. Deceased. He's been deceased from what? He's been deceased from being a slave, because he was stopped from being what he was when he was born by the state, and the state took absolute ownership of him. And then they've stopped the property ownership because he's got more life force in his blood and his veins to continue being ceased from doing what he should have been here in the first place. And the more spiritual among you will start to understand what's going on there. They're taking your energy. That's what it says in the Matrix. You are a battery. And you are. They're taking all your life force off you and imposing more and more rules and taking more and more of your property away from you. And more, and you're having to work older and older, longer hours. And they're taking away all your money through usury, which is against God's law, by the way. It's not wrong with having money, but not usury. It's against God's law. And don't think this law is just for the Israelites. It's for everybody. And don't think you're not an Israelite because you are. Wow, that's a revelation, isn't it? No, it's not the Jews, it's us. It's not the Jewish people who are the Israelites, it's us. Okay? I mean, the Jewish can come to be a child of God, right? However, they have to stop all these crimes against humanity, because that's what it's all about. Just getting the property off you, getting everything. You work, you slave your life away for this system, which is a copy of the God's system, right? Where do we go from here? Right, ownership. It's, as I say, it is all about property. Ownership. The person in whom is vested the ownership, dominion, or title of property, proprietor. He who has dominion over a thing, real or personal, corporeal or incorporeal, which he has a right to enjoy and do with as he pleases, even to spoil or destroy it as far as the law permits, unless he be prevented by some agreement or covenant. Covenant, eh? That's an interesting word, which restrains his right. So God's got 10 laws. One of them is thou shalt not kill. What's happening overseas right now? What's been happening since this century began? It's just about war, and it's just about killing people, killing their own property. The Crown owns just so much persons on this land, it's unbelievable. I'm not talking about this land, I'm talking about across the world. A friend of mine who is here did tell me when I spoke to him a year or so ago that the Catholic Church owns 98% of Pakistan. I remember that, by the way. I know you know who I'm talking to, and I won't mention your name, but I do remember that, and it's stuck in my head. Now, the Catholic Church would not allow people to read the Bible or to own the Bible until 1962. When I say the Bible, I'm talking about the King James Version. King James Version was written or interpreted in 1611, and since then there's been 151 versions put onto the planet. None of them have the word person in them apart from the King James. They have things like similitudes, stuff like that, but none of them have that in it. Thou shalt not make a graven image of thyself, or anything in the air, on the land, or in the waters, or in the earth. So you're not supposed to make a graven image. You're not supposed to respect the persons. Let's move on a bit, eh? I'll leave that up there for a while. The good thing about this is the Queen. This is when she was coronated. No, hang on, somebody said bitch. No. When the Queen is seated, the Archbishop shall go to a chair, and the moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, receiving the Holy Bible from the Dean of Westminster, shall bring it to the Queen and present it to her, the Archbishop saying these words: Our gracious Queen, to keep your Majesty ever mindful of the law and the gospel of God as the rule for the whole life and government of Christian princes, we present you with this book, the most valuable thing that this world affords. And the moderator shall continue: He is wisdom, this is the law, the royal law, and these are the lively oracles of God. That's the law that you should be observing. The Queen can trace her family tree, and does trace her family tree, on the royal website, right back to the pharaohs. Are we in Egypt again, do you think? Have a look at your buildings around. Have a look at the pyramids. Go to Salford on the M62 and have a look at the Co-op Bank. Go on the M56, there's a church on the M56, it's a pyramid. Go to your courthouses. Are they Egyptians? Those judges Egyptians, you think? I don't know. They're either Egyptians or they're Levites, one or the other. Because they all wear silly wigs. And they all wear black. And if you go to the Anglican Cathedral in Liverpool, in the doorway is a big statue of Amen Ra. Has anybody been there and seen that? It's there, Amen Ra. So, could we be back here, or back there, in Egypt? Can you turn your phones off, please? So, come on, Hillary, you should know better than that. You've been coming here. So it's not all doom and gloom anyway, it is not doom and gloom. What are we doing? What time's that? 1:45, is it? 10:02? 1:45. It's not all doom and gloom, but you see, what you've got now is you've got two sets of law running alongside each other here. Because we've got the criminal laws, which are getting passed by a coalition government. And a coalition, for those who do not know, I have said this before, a coalition in law is an unlawful agreement between two persons or more not to do a thing, full stop, a conspiracy. So, you had David Cameron and, who is it, Nick Clegg, is it, conspired together to form an unlawful coalition in this country to take the power off it for the purposes of which I'll tell you in a moment. Right, the Queen's sovereignty representative, by the way, her grasp is slipping from the United Kingdom. In fact, it's just about to end. There is a law getting put before Parliament now, I don't know how far it's gone, it may have been passed, I've no idea, where Parliament can make any law it wants without the authorisation and signature of the Queen. Did you know that? No. Well, go on Parliament website, type in sovereignty amendment, and it's there. I did speak about this last year, or the year before, but it's there, and it's going through. So, the sovereign of the country, sovereign representative of the country, holds that law, but she's going, and so's the royal family, and it's getting decommissioned, and we are then in, as Rob Bollocks would say, Napoleonic law. And unless all you people start waking up and start telling your friends all this, right, this place is going to be mayhem. In fact, it may be mayhem whether you tell them or not, because most people aren't interested. They're either out there eating ice cream right now, or they're watching flaming EastEnders or whatever else is on telly. They bloody go for what nonsense is on. A refresher there. I've just told you that. Yeah. I smell a rat, what's going on? I'll go through that. So, you know who's got power over you? It's the government. Right. How did that government get the power over you? Let's go back to the start. It tells you in the Bible what's happened. Because we wouldn't obey God's law. We chose ourselves another God. We thought we could do better than the Ten Commandments and the statutes that went along with it. Because in the statutes that go along with the Ten Commandments, by the way, there's only one law of God, and that law is love thy neighbour. That's it. That's it. The Ten Commandments are guidelines to help you achieve that law of love your neighbour. And the statutes that go alongside with that are the penalties and the way it should be administered. So if somebody, for example, was to kill your wife or your friend or somebody else, then he will be tried before a group of people with 12 good men and the administrator, which is the judge, who has no say in the proceedings other than to administer God's punishment. Now, unless two people actually see that man kill that other man, there ain't no case. It's got to be actually two people who have actually seen it. However, if two people or more have physically seen it, were there when it happened, then that man should be stoned to death. That is to discourage any other criminals or men who have a warped mind and decide that they want to get shot at somebody. Right. Have a look at the statutes yourself. They're all in Deuteronomy. But brilliant, it's brilliant. But what we've done is said, right, well, okay, we're going to create ourselves another God who can do better. And that God is the state. That's the United Kingdom, France, Australia, the latest one, Iraq, the one before that, United States. They all went away from here, thought they could do a better job. Look at the mess they're in right now with the bankers, because the bankers got in there. These people who were around 2,000 years ago when Jesus was around, when Jesus overturned the tables. It was all about usury, that. Yeah. Right? And that's what's going on now, and the States is in a mess. The only country, real country that's actually got wealth in it now is Iraq. Did you know that, I'm trying to think of his name.
Saddam Hussein?
No, I'm trying, one of the American politicians, oh crikey, no. Well, it doesn't matter. Very rich man, bought £8 billion worth of Iraqi dinar. Has anybody heard the rumour of the Iraqi dinar? No. Well, I'll put you onto it. If you want to go and buy some dinar, you probably won't be able to now. But up until about 6-8 months ago, the dinar is equivalent to 0.00521 of a pound. When we went in there in 2003, the value of the dinar was $7.5 to 1 dinar. So they devalued the currency with the trade embargoes and all the rest of it. And the big American businessmen and politicians have bought loads of dinars. I'm guilty, I've got some. I bought some about 3 years, 4 years ago. If I'd only known then what I know now, there's no way I'd have them, but anyway, I've got them. And apparently there's supposed to be a revaluation of this dinar, which is going to go back to pre-wartime value. So I think I've got 400 or 600,000. So 400 times $7.5, whatever that is. It won't come to fruition, by the way. But Iraq has the wealth in the country, or did have. Now it's the Yanks. And the reason why it hasn't been revalued is because they owe much debt to the bankers. And they're trying to pay them back. So we created this God called the United Kingdom. And God said, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not serve them. You shall not bow down to them. And what are we doing? We're bowing down to a God which did not create us, which created a similitude or a graven image called the person, the man of sin. Now this has gone on, not just in Jesus' times, this went on before then, back to Noah, because the Lord God brought them out of the house of Egypt, out of the bondage in Egypt. So we're going back 6,000 years there. So the same system's put in place over and over and over and over again. I don't know how many times it was put in place before Moses, but it tells you quite clearly when you understand what a person is, right, that it's your graven image. It's your graven image that gets a driving license. It's your graven image that has a passport. Anybody know what the meaning of a passport is? Let me tell you what the legal meaning of a passport. A passport is a document given to a diplomat of an enemy country, a belligerent enemy country, to allow that person to travel to another country who is at war with them, to pass through freely without let or hindrance. So if you've got a passport, you're a diplomat of the enemy state of the United Kingdom. Who's the enemy state? Well, it's the rest of the world, because the United Kingdom's at war, a commercial war with the rest of the world. But you're a diplomat, that's what you're saying, you're a diplomat. Now don't take my word for it, have a look in a legal dictionary. Don't go to flaming Oxford Dictionary unless you've got the 28 volumes, the full set. Go to a law dictionary. Free online dictionary is another good one for you to have a look at. So we're serving this state. Is the state serving you well? You created a state. You are the creators, or our forefathers are the creators. And every 4 years, and there's one coming up this year, isn't there? Next 12 months, we create another God to administer our will, to bring out new laws, which I'll be going into 5 minutes. Bring out new laws to look after you. Anybody here getting looked after, getting any joy, getting any benefit from any of the laws that have been passed in the last 20 years, please put your hand up now and tell me what that law is. Anybody? Has anybody been harmed by any of these laws in the last 20 years? Well, they come after you for liabilities, don't they? Speak Airport, I've only just found out in the last few days. They used to, well, first of all, 20 years ago, you could park outside the terminal and they give you half an hour, right? And then 10 years ago, they put all barriers up and all this and stop people parking outside the actual door, and you had to go over there and drop people off. But they give you 5 minutes just to drop people off. Now you've got to pay them £2. And they've got civil enforcement officers all over the place putting tickets on people all over the place, and the access road to it, which was just a normal dual carriageway. You've got, you know about the TV licence guys, don't you? They're going to be coming around slapping tickets on your door, whether you like it or not. Civil enforcement officers, that's probably got through by now. And the BBC licence is going to get funded by that, extra funding. But the TV licensing was, don't know whether it still is, owned by Consignia, who was owned by astounding. So if you think you're paying TV licensing money directly to the BBC, you're wrong. Questions after, please, Natalie. But there are solutions, right? And one of the solutions are pick that up and start reading it. Try to understand what it says. Sheldon Emmy gives brilliant examples about what's going on. Marcus, as I say, and Christian remedy and law is another one. So we've got a queen there who upholds the royal law, right? So why in our courts doesn't the royal law exist? It does. It does.
Spencer's law.
To a great degree, yeah, to a great degree. But the royal law does exist. What do you think this is? Yeah, but what do you think this is? This is a book of law of property. That's the same. The bankers have took ownership of the persons, right, and they own it. And they're draining us of our life force instead of us working together and giving each other things and us helping the poor, not flaming sticking it in baskets for charities, not giving it to Oxfam, not giving it to Marie Curie. Marie Curie, crikey, the billions of pounds that they've had. Has anybody here had any experience of Marie Curie? Please put your hand up. My experience twice was my mum and dad died of cancer. And every time I rang them up, they weren't there. They're not open of a weekend. They have a nice little job. They finish at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not talking about the convalescent homes here. I'm talking about if you need a Macmillan nurse after hours, you're not going to get one, or Marie Curie. However, look at the cars that the bosses drive. Go round to the Albert Dock and have a look at the Marie Curie offices there and see the cars that they're driving. You think that money goes to them? It's cancer cure? No chance. No chance. They suppress cancer cures. We know this. We know this. But it tells you all in the Bible that's what's going to happen. Right the way through the Bible, your servants will be your master. You've chosen the wrong God. You're going to regret it. Just don't turn your back on my law, because it'll come back and bite you in the arse 20 times harder. Now, to me, God's 10 Commandments, or God's law, love thy neighbour, is a law of karma. What goes round, come rounds. So if you don't follow that law and love your neighbour and look after them when they need assistance or help or a cup of tea, who said a cup of coffee? Yes please, 2 sugar. Then you're going to come to a point in your life, might take 1 year, might take 6 months, it might take 30 years, where you need the assistance. where you lose all your wealth and you're not going to get the help because you didn't love your neighbour when your neighbour needed you. And they're the laws of karma, and that's what I believe the Ten Commandments are towards. Right? We are showing to respect to persons, and those persons are United Utilities, DVLA, Scottish Power, E.ON, Tesco or Deathco, somebody said, Lyde, Lidl, Sainsbury's, we better use Sainsbury's, right, Morrison's, and all the others. Instead of going to our local farmer and buying it direct off him, chemical-free, wholesome, and keep that man so he can keep his family and serve the community, so he can fulfill his part of love thy neighbour. Right, 5 minutes is up, and we'll have a break, and I'll see you in the second half. Thank you. Thank you for coming back. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me at the back? Good. Before I finish, please remind me about fracking. Okay, there's a lot of people very passionate about that, and I can understand the reasons why. Okay, right. Life. This is from Black's Law Second. Life, that state of animals and plants, or of an organised being, in which its natural functions and motions are performed, or in which its organs are capable of performing their functions. The sum of the forces by which death is resisted. That's life. Natural life, however, is something completely different. Natural life, the period of a person's existence. We know what a person is now, don't we? Where are we? The period of a person's existence considered as continuing until terminated by physical dissolution or death occurring in the course of nature, used in contradistinction to that juristic and artificial conception of life as an aggregate of legal rights or the possession of a legal personality which could be terminated by civil death. That is, that extinction of personality which resulted from entering a monastery or being attainted of treason or felony. Does everybody understand the implications behind that? I'll try to explain. So natural life is the period of a birth certificate's existence, a person's existence, right? The property of the state's existence, as continuing until terminated by physical dissolution. Physical dissolution is stopping giving life to that person, that thing that's owned by the state. Or death occurring in the course of nature. Used in contradistinction to that juristic and artificial conception of life. So that's the juristic and artificial idea of life. Yeah. As an aggregate of legal rights or the possession of a legal personality. So if you haven't got a legal personality, they can't take you to court because there's no person to take to court. Right, which could be terminated. We're saying now there's a couple of ways it can be terminated. By civil death, that is the extinction of personality which resulted from entering a monastery or being attainted of treason or felony. That's the life that your government protects. It doesn't protect your life, not interested in your life. It's interested in the person's life. God's interested in your life and not interested in the person's life. So while you keep giving that energy, your country will protect you. If you have a civil death, your country will not protect you, and you become what is known as an outlaw. And an outlaw is somebody that operates outside the law. Remember in the old westerns it'd say wanted dead or alive, and there'd be a fella's face there. That's because he didn't have a person. They want him because he's running round out there doing what the hell he wants, living under his own law, or he could be living under God's law, but we don't know whether he's under God's law. If he's not under God's law and he's going around doing all these sorts of things, we're going to get him in and we're going to lock him up for the rest of life, or we're going to kill him. Right? Do you understand the implications behind that? Now, all these people who are saying, I'm a sovereign, free man on the land, and I don't conform to your laws, your statutes. You can stick your parking tickets and your speeding offences up your bum, and you can stick the debt that I don't owe you up your bum, right? You are then committing a civil death by saying you are not that person. I'm not that person. You are heading for serious trouble, and I hope you free men on the land on YouTube are listening to this. However, there is a way, because civil death, that is the extinction of personality which resulted from entering a monastery. What's a monastery? A place of God, worship to your God. And if it's the correct God, your creator, who's already given you a set of laws to abide by, that's don't harm your neighbour. Thou shalt not respect persons. Thou shalt love thy neighbour. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not make any graven images. The very fact that you've got a person, you're attached to it, you are breaking God's second commandment. You've already broke the first by applying for driving licenses, getting mortgages, and all that sort of stuff.
Is that worshipping the false god?
That's worshipping Satan. Satan actually means in Greek adversary. That's what it means. Doesn't mean this well, it is an evil thing. The state is an evil thing. We know this, right? Because it was to be our servant, now it's our master. And it's huge. And it's got guns and tanks and warships and aeroplanes and nuclear bombs and chemical trails and companies that want to go round fracking, right? I'll come back to the fracking in a minute, right? And destroying the planet and keeping small pockets of the planet for itself, its own little members, the rich elite. I was mentioning before, in Greenland, there's the biggest influx of seriously rich elite. Why is it called Greenland if it's cold? And it's full of ice. And by the way, Greenland's owned by Denmark, and this queen, her ancestors were from the tribe of Dan. So let's work this out for ourselves, shall we? Right? Go on. Make it quick.
Greenland was called Greenland to deceive Vikings to go and settle there during the medieval war period.
Right, okay, yeah. But then we go into the things like flat earth and hollow earth.
Oh, we've had them.
You've had flat earth, you've had hollow earth, but think about this for a minute. In the Bible, Adam was sent from the Garden of Eden. Sorry, Cain, not Adam. Cain was sent from the Garden of Eden to in the earth. Not on the earth. He was sent from the face of the earth into the earth. Think about that. And think about the law of gravity. If we're a spinning ball going through space at whatever speed it is, and the Earth's supposed to be spinning, on an axis of 23.7, whatever. And we're hurtling through space. Wouldn't we get thrown off? Because if we get a tennis ball and we spin it round and put a load of ants on it, they'll go... How come we don't? Well, let's look at it in an abstract way. By the way, this is off subject, but I just wanted just to plant some seeds here, right? Think about it the other way, because we've got people going around talking about Admiral Byrd, and we've got people talking about flat Earth. For those who don't know about Admiral Byrd, apparently in the early 1900s, he got to the North Pole and found a great big hole and found out that there was people and animals living in the Earth. The Earth was hollow. Now, Journey to the Centre of the Earth was on today as well. Talks about the same thing, right? Now, if this was hollow Earth, and Adam and Cain and his descendants, and Abel, and not Abel because he didn't have any descendants, but Seth, and they were all settled into the Earth, and we are in Earth, that would certainly describe gravity, wouldn't it? Because if you get a tennis ball and spin it round like that, very fast, right, you would need strong muscles in your legs to jump up and down, and you would need big rockets to get off the ground to go towards the centre. And as you get towards the centrifugal force becomes less, and you start to float like you do when you get so many miles up. And by the way, it's 25,000 miles, isn't it, in diameter, or circumference, whichever. Are we looking, when we look up there, are we looking into the Earth? Because apparently the crust of the Earth is only 7 miles deep. Just something you to think about. Anyway, sorry about that, just going off subject. James 2, 6 to 10. But ye have despised the poor, do not rich men oppress you, and draw you before the judgment seats. They're the courts, so the rich are taking you to court. The banks are taking you to court. The council tax who are owned by the banks are taking you to court. And draw you before the judgment seats. Do they not blaspheme that worthy name by which you are called? That worthy name? Well, in my case, it's David. That's my God-given name. That's the name my mum and dad give me. I presumed a surname. Well, I assumed a surname. A surname is a surety. And Jesus said, never be a surety for anyone. Okay? So do not blaspheme that worthy name by which you are called. If you fulfill the royal law, according to the scripture, thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself, you do well. But if you have respect to persons, you commit sin and are convinced of the law as transgressors. For whosoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. So if you show respect to persons, you're a sinner. And a sinner means a debtor. You go into debt for showing respect to persons. But if you love your neighbour as you do yourself, you do well. That's how you get your council tax bills. You are showing respect to your local council, who look after you, don't they? They look after us all, don't they? They empty the bins once every week.
They get you right too, don't they?
So you show respect to persons. When you show respect to persons, you're a sinner. Where does that leave you when you're getting dragged to court by these people? Because they mistake you for a person. Well, you let them know that you're not a person, first of all. And you don't write to the council, because if you write to the council, like let's say the chief executive officer of Sefton Council or Blackpool Council, you write to that person, you're showing respect to that person. You can't show respect to persons, otherwise you're a sinner and you're convinced as transgressors of the law, right? Now, you're not breaking any law. right, by putting your bin out on a Tuesday instead of a Friday. You're breaking a rule that they impose on their property. If you give them their property back, then, and let them know that you are a living soul of God. And by the way, you have God's authority. Did you know that? We are all supposed to act as, not be gods, but act as gods. Because he's given us dominion over everything on the planet. So you people who are against fracking, don't be writing to the person, CEO at the council. You write to the man or the woman and address them in the Christian name, their God-given name, and say, I cannot respect persons. I am writing to you because if I do write to the person, I'm a sinner. And by the way, your person's actions are causing harm to your neighbour. Now, these people are very holy. You go to the council and you'll find out it's divided between two. You've got a legal department and you've got an ecclesiastical part of it. That's how you stop them doing the damage that they're doing. And when the banks are coming after you, because you can't afford to pay their loans because they charged you usury, which is against the royal law, you write to the man, or sorry, the living soul in charge, not the person. You cannot show respect to the person. And that goes for judges, magistrates, policemen, chief constables. I've written to chief constables on behalf of people, and guess what? They run away. They don't want to know. They won't answer. And if they do answer you, then the case gets put to the bottom of the pile until it goes past its date of statute of limitation, and then it appears. And once it's gone to statute of limitation, the date's gone by, you just say, you've got to dismiss this, judge, because it's gone past the date of statute of limitation, which is 6 months for a motoring offence. People in my, well, not our group, sorry, our assembly. I'm going to call it assembly because Jesus says, assemble yourselves together in the old days, in the end days, because you're going to get battered if we don't start doing this, all of us, right, and getting shut. Having that civil death, but following and letting them know that you're following the laws of God. Now, has anybody got any problem in following the laws of God? We all know the 10 Commandments, don't we? They're absolutely perfect. You know, don't love your neighbour, you don't make any graven images, don't steal, don't be looking at your neighbour's wife through the keyhole and through the curtains while she's topless in the garden like the one next door to me this afternoon. Right? Don't bear false witness, thou shalt not kill, and all these things. They're the perfect laws so that we can all live happily, peacefully, prosperously, and have all our resources abundant. Get this, Tesco. I'm going to pick on Tesco because it's, it was, it's called Tesco because of Lord Cohen's wife was called Tessa, and that's where you get your Tessa Cohen, Tesco. Tesco is a huge corporation. It throws out something like 750,000 tonnes of food a year is put onto landfill sites. It's got billions of pounds worth of assets. Its upper management are very well paid. The people who are stocking the shelves up and doing the real work are on minimum wage. However, Tesco has billions of pounds in the bank and billions of pounds worth of assets. Tesco is a person. It's a legal fiction. It's just like your birth certificate. It's a piece of paper which is registered at company's house. That is immoral in every form, anybody's eyes. Anybody think that's not immoral, that a piece of paper should have all that wealth and all those assets and own all that land and suppress all those people and throw all that food out? And Tesco's got a bank, hasn't it? Usually, there we go. Sainsbury's, Asda. You don't need a driving licence when you're in God's jurisdiction. How do you get into God's jurisdiction? Would anybody sooner go into God's jurisdiction than this false God called the United Kingdom? Would anybody? I know I would. I'm up for that. I'm up for that, yeah. Well, you see, I struggled for months, and Michelle and Eric know about this, trying to find a thing called the foundational identity document. Now, there are people who found the notification of birth, and there are people who found the infancy record. I wrote to patient data in Waverley Technology Park, Nye Bevan House. Nye Bevan House. I wrote to my doctor. I wrote to the registry office. And I've got no joy. The hospital that I was born, nobody's got any records of it. Nobody. I don't exist. There is no evidence in documentation in their system of me existing other than this birth certificate, which is the property of the Crown, and it cannot be used as evidence of my identification. But I can't get out the country unless I've got a passport, unless I've got evidence of who I am, where I come from. I can't get out the country. There's your passport. You were born of God. There's your driving licence. You were born of God. You are under God's dominion, should you choose. It's just a choice of to go into that jurisdiction or the United Kingdom. If you choose the United Kingdom, good luck to you and God help you, because the thing's coming down the pipeline, folks. When you read in there, and it's all in there, by the way, it tells you all what's happened throughout history. It tells you all about what's happening now, your chemtrails and your wars in Israel and Pakistan, and your how America come about. It predicts it all when you know how to read it. It tells you that your soil is going to be destroyed, your water will be destroyed, your children will be bond slaves, and we're all slaves, every one of us. Right? I mean, I'm just on the last throes of getting out of it. That's why I'm going into the jurisdiction of God. I carry a Bible with me all the time. You write your name in it when you were born, not when you were birthed. Your date of birth is different to the date you were born. Your date of birth is a couple of days after you were born. Birthing is a thing for ships. You are not a ship. You are a living soul. So, you write to your council over the fracking, and you write to the woman or the man, living soul, brethren, neighbour. Call them brethren, call them neighbour, but don't call them person, and do not write to their person. You are wasting your time writing as a person to a person, because the council owns you if you're a person, and the government own the council, and the European Union own the United Kingdom, and up it goes to wherever. Start off, get to the root of the problem, which is your birth certificate. Change your identity. Don't have a civil death, start shouting, I'm a free man on the land, because you'll end up in jail. And by the way, you're an outlaw, and you've got no protection against anybody killing you. Do you know that? That's why Saddam Hussein was murdered. Because he said, I don't recognise your jurisdiction. I'm under the jurisdiction of something else. The God, and that God he was under the jurisdiction on, was the God called Iraq. A false God. In there it tells you, you come back to this, me, the Lord God, and you will have protection. And 10 people will come towards you, and you'll chase them away, and they will run. And when 100 of you get together, 100,000 people will come after you, and they will run also. We've got to have is a consciousness change on the planet that we've all been talking about for the last, how many years have I been coming here? 5, 6. This is your answer to getting out. Oh, where's it gone? Out of that natural life. Natural life is the life that's protected by the state, and it'll only protect that life while it thinks you are nice, obedient little slaves who go to work and make the state bigger so it can oppress more people and bring more immigrants, because that's what all the immigrants are about. They're bringing them in for more money and more power. Don't think they're walking on our country. No. It's not our country. It's God's country, and it's God's world. Sorry, God's earth. And these things are set about for that. And we should be loving our neighbours, not calling people who come from overseas, Poland or Africa or India or any of these places. They are our neighbours, and we should be welcoming them. And we should be welcomed when we want to go over to the States, when we want to go to Australia, or when we want to go over to Poland. We should all be welcomed, instead of using pieces of paper with permission to being a diplomat to an enemy state who's at war with the state that we're going to. Why would anybody want to carry a passport? I sent my passport and my driving license back to David Cameron in January. I burnt the face off and the name off the driving licence and the passport and sent it off to him and said, you can stick your property where the sun doesn't shine. I am not your slave. I am the property of God the Creator. Blah, blah, blah. I do not fall under the jurisdiction of any of your rules because you formed a coalition government which is against the law. An unlawful agreement was created. You conspired to take control of the United Kingdom. And I just don't... was it 3 or 4 days later? No, it was 4 days later. The licence burned with me face off. Came back 4 days later, registered post. Thank you for sharing your views with Mr. Cameron. Here are your documents back. Now, it's against the law to deface government property. It's against the law to deface your passport and to deface your driving licence. Why didn't I get a knock on the door with coppers saying you're arrested? Don't know. Maybe it was God protected me, because God's law exists, and God's law is in force in this country. Because when you go up to Queen's Bench to protect yourself, that's when they do recognise a living soul. They will recognise a living soul on the Queen's Bench. But you've got to know what God's laws are. You've got to bring God into your protection. Just like the Queen is above the law, but she's under God's law. Right? She's not under the same laws as you and me. She doesn't carry money. Anybody heard of the Queen carrying money? No. Did she get done for speeding? Ever? No. Has she ended up in prison for treason? No. Why? Because everybody knows here that the Queen's been treasonable, don't they? Anybody not know what the Queen, treason actions that the Queen's done? Anybody not know? Please put your hand up. Well, first of all, the coronation was not the way it should have been. She wasn't sitting on Rosetta Stone, and also she took an oath to uphold all the laws of the United Kingdom and its traditions. However, she's given all those laws and those traditions and handed them over to the European Union. She sold all us, her people, because they're her people, she can sell them. She sold them all to the European Union. Why isn't she up for treason? Because she's above the law. But she's not above this law. But she hasn't broken any laws there. In that book. In that book, she hasn't broken any laws. In the laws of the United Kingdom, she's broken laws. But she's not under the United Kingdom's jurisdiction, she's under God's jurisdiction. It's time all of you come under God's jurisdiction, because we're all God's people. We've turned our face on this God and are worshipping a demigod. David Cameron, December last year, and I've seen him doing this since, come out to number 10 down the street like this. Puffed up, you know, make him look bigger. And he comes through a pulpit like this, and he puts his hands like that, and right there, says New Horizons there, doesn't it? That's underneath me, and I'm above it. And I'm watching behind what's going on. That means that I'm above New Horizons. I know I'm not. Well, I am actually, because New Horizons is a person. Right? That means that I'm above that. David Cameron, when Nelson Mandela allegedly died, I think he died a few years ago, but he came out to give a speech about Nelson Mandela to the press. And on the pulpit there was the royal seal, the Queen's seal. Now, if any of you have been to a court, you will know or seen on telly any court, the royal seal is always behind, because it's above the judges and it's above the people, and it looks down on the judges and the people. David Cameron is saying, the Queen's got no power, I've got more power than her now, she's underneath me. Now that's a bit worrying. There's your Napoleonic law that Rob Bollocks talks about. It's actually, I mean, what can you say about that? Right. So, I'm doing stuff at the present moment which I cannot talk about on microphone. I cannot talk about this stuff on microphone. I don't mind all this going out now. But it involves the Queen's Bench Court. I've written to them. They've not written back. Whereas the government, or David Cameron, returned and wrote back within 4 days. It's been a week now, and I've not heard anything. That means, to me, that the cogs are turning, something's happening. Otherwise, they've got it back saying, we don't know what you're talking about, you fool, sod off. But it was bringing in this law. Give them back, render to Caesar what is his. And what? And being that we are in Egypt at the present moment, and it is Roman law in the courts, in the government, and there is a covenant between God and his people which is still live, because it says there, these are the lively oracles of God. That means they are alive. And an oracle is an utterance from a prophetic man. So the covenant, the utterance of the prophetic man, Moses, and Abraham, and Isaac, and are still in force, and Jacob, by the way. By the way, we have a Union Jack, don't we? That's the union of Jacob and God. That's what it's represented. Union Jack, union of Jacob and God. Right? And we're still under that. And we still have that deal with God, should we wish to take it. And we will be protected as God's people. We will not be protected. It's gone now. Under the civil death procedure, if we're going around saying, I am a sovereign free man on the land, sovereign means absolute power and absolute ownership. That's what the word sovereign means. Look it up. You cannot possibly be sovereign with absolute power and ownership rights. The earth was here before you got here. No. No, you have to follow a set of rules. Anyway, I can give you examples of what's gone on in our assembly, who we've written to. I don't know whether it's, no, I won't do it over microphone. But we have written to judges, we've written to councils, we've written to chief constables, banks, debt collectors, bailiffs. On one occasion last week, a week Friday gone, a friend of mine rang me up and he said, I've got the bailiffs at the door, council tax. I said, get your Bible in your hand and tell them that this is a place of worship, contemplation, prayer and meditation toward God, and that you are not that person, you are a living soul of God's. So he did exactly that, and the bailiffs got back in the van, got on the phone, and within 5 minutes they were gone. He hasn't heard anything. That was just last Friday, and that was just him saying that. I've written, goodness knows how many letters, invoking the jurisdiction of God, the royal law, you know, the royal law, and not used that man of sin, which is your surname. Any Christian, I wish there was Christians here, honestly, because their churches have just, either every priest and every man in the church is an absolute dimwit, or they know this stuff, or a bit of both. If I can work this out, anybody can work this out. If I can work that that's your passport, that's your driving license, that's your birth certificate, your born certificate, put your name in there, and then you go into the book of life. It tells you about the book of life in there, and it tells you about the book of the dead. That's the book of the life. These are the lively oracles of God. The book of life at the present moment, you're written into the book of the dead, and if you watch your Freeman videos, they'll tell you that all those names in those books, the registry book, at your local registry office, are dead persons. Bring yourself back to life and get to heaven, because this earth is heaven. You know, on the third day, God divided the waters and all that, and it brought a firmament between the waters, and that's, it says, and that is heaven. And it also says further along in Genesis, say the birds live in heaven. This is heaven. It's the first heaven. There's more heavens, like, but and you've got to die before you go to heaven, haven't you? So anyway, that's it. What time is it? Have I been going on for that long? Sorry about that, folks. If any of you want to search this more, please do, because you're not going to get any, one sec, you're not going to get any answers doing what you're doing. You're just going to continue to get hurt, or you're not going to get any remedy. There is remedy in the Bible as well, right? Which I'll talk about hopefully later on in the year, when I've actually got the proof and knowledge of it, which I'm working on now, and I've been working on this for years, but it's starting to come to fruition. So, but please, Christian Remedy and Law, servantking.info, Sheldon Emery, listen to his audio tapes, and if you can interpret the Bible yourselves, interpret it. Knowing that information about persons, and knowing that there are more than one God, and most of the gods in the Bible are the ones that are of nations that man has made, so he didn't have to follow God's rule. And we are his people, and there is a covenant, a will, and your father is extremely rich. It's just you had all that wealth stolen off you by Satan. Satan is an adversary, and an adversary is the state, right? And that's why they say state and church should always be separate. I'm afraid this state and this Church of England are both together, right, along with the Catholic Church. However, the words of God are still preserved. Don't go to your church. It tells you that now. Stay away from your churches. It's full of false preachers and false prophets, and the Pharisees and the scribes. The scribes are your lawyers, and the Pharisees are your priests who are keeping the truth from you. Now, I don't know. I only know what I've read and what I've researched. The book, I'm not even halfway through the Old Testament yet. I've got all sorts to come. You know, let's see if we can find another thing to back up this person. Let's have a look. Just bear with me. Oh, that's not it. Right, let's have a look. Oh. Just download the Bible yourselves on Adobe. Do a word search for person, right? And you'll see all the places that it comes up with person, and every one of them show no respect to persons. He sent 300,000 persons to die. And the sacrifice, by the way, remember all the sacrifices in Deuteronomy? Is it Leviticus? God said, bring that cow up to the altar and slice its throat and rip out its innards and all the rest of it. That was all about God knew his people and knew that they would be really upset by doing that, because we all like animals, don't we? And we don't like to see harm coming to an animal, let alone ourselves. So he knew that it would upset us to do that. So that will be a lesson. Don't do that again, because otherwise, to make atonement, I'm going to drag you towards the altar again. You're going to have to do it again to another cow or another goat or another sheep. Well, he said, that's enough. I'm not doing that anymore. Well, and he sent Jesus. Well, I know you all have your own opinions about Jesus, but Jesus died with a blood sacrifice so that all our sins, and our sins mean debt, means debt. It's all about money. It's not about anything else. It's all about that. That's what that's all about. That's what that's all about. It's all about property. So all your debts were paid. Right, I'll give you a couple of solutions. 2 solutions before I take questions. I was going to finish 5 minutes ago. Right, this is not my, these are not mine, by the way, right, but here's one. This is from Serving King Marcus. If you're brought before the courts, for whatever reason it is, ask the judge. Say, am I entitled to legal advice or representation? And what's the judge or the magistrate going to do? Of course. Say, well, I'd like a stay of proceedings for 7 years, please, so I can get myself a law degree. No, we've got a juicy solicitor for that. No. I don't even know him. He wasn't there when this alleged offence took place. How can I get him to represent me? By the way, he's a member of the Law Society, and I understand the Law Society have their own language. And not only that, you have to be a member to be in the Law Society, so you have to be trained as a lawyer. And I know he takes an oath of office to the Crown, to the bar, or to the courts and to the bar, and his last oath is towards me. And he may have even made other oaths towards Masonic secret societies. So I'd like to settle this matter myself, please, and it's going to take me maybe 7 years or longer to get myself a law degree so I can join that society, and then I know how to settle this matter myself. Right? Can't deny you that, because everybody's entitled to legal representation or legal advice. Okay? Now, I didn't know this till the week before last, that every act of Parliament, every statute that goes through, every 7 years has to be reenacted. So your Road Traffic Act bill every 7 years has to be reenacted, because after 7 years a bill is paid, because according to this book, after 7 years the debt becomes null and void and paid. That's why on your, what's it called, your HPI and what's the other flaming credit reference, Experian, the record is wiped after 7 years. That's why. Because of the law that's in there. So, ask for legal advice and say, I'm going to study the law and I need 7 years at the very least. How's about that then? That was from Marcus Servant King the week before last. Brilliant, brilliant. And they can't refuse you. What would that do to the legal system if we all started doing that? What would that do to the legal system if you went in there with your fracking stuff? Wow. Question?
Have you noticed where in the part of the Bible where there are the 10 Commandments, have you noticed that actually the word thou shalt actually appears 12 times? So you could say that 10 Commandments are actually 12 Commandments. Who says there's 10 Commandments on it, priest?
Well,
10 are actually 12.
The second commandment, thou shalt not make any graven images of thee, but also anything else. And the first commandment, I am the Lord your God, you are my people, you shall not have any gods before me. Now shalt you bow down to them or serve them or worship them. So you could say the first and second are 1, 2, 3 and 4. And by the way, if you look at them and the implications behind them, they are listed in order of priority. Because if you go worshipping other gods, you then become their property. You know, like go worshipping Liverpool Football Club. You know, be a member of this society. No, you're a member of the family of God, whether you like it or not, your creator, and he's left everything here for you. Right, he's very rich, but there's only a few rules that you have to do. Any other questions?
Yeah. Studying the Bible, really, is there techniques to sieve out
yeah, I mean, it's not an easy book to study, but as I say, if you look for Sheldon Emery Library, right, there is hundreds upon hundreds of audio files that you can download and listen to. Look at it in a different light. Look at it as a book of property, because it's all about the property. Who owns what? And you don't own anything. And you can't ever own anything, even if you go into that law, because God made it. But he says you've got dominion over everything. But don't give it to persons, because if you give it to persons, they'll abuse you and use you. Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of people, including yourself, when speaking, make assumptions about what one can do in practical, realistic terms in order to gain some control. And what you were proposing was that you were able to use the Bible as passport, license, and so forth. I don't dispute the jurisdiction aspect of what you've described at all. I think it makes perfect sense, and I've come across that before. But in practice, I know that it is remarkably unsuccessful.
Do you know that, or do you believe that?
Well, I only know that by example of the people that I'm familiar with who have actually tried it.
Really? Can I ask you a question? Were you actually there when they did it?
Sorry? No.
Well, it's, you don't know it, you believe it.
Well, okay. I mean,
I haven't tried it yet.
what I would tell you is that these people, you know, have tried it, yes, and they say that you'll find it very hard to get out of the country or into another one. But moreover, because the police, for instance, they are trained with a bunch of operating procedures, and what you're doing is you're taking them out of their knowledge and comfort zone.
You don't argue with the police.
No, but if you say, well, this is my driving licence, I don't have a driving licence, this is it. They will not let you get back in the car.
They'll probably take you back to the station.
Exactly.
And ask you your name.
Yeah.
And then you will say, is it not written? I mean,
I wish you well with it. Let me know.
no, hold on a sec. It's the Queen does this. The Queen's Bench court system does this. Have you any idea the power that a man has when he walks into Queen's Bench against a person? Don't take my word. Have a look at habeas stuff. Habeas has had wonderful stuff. Carl Lentz being a man, but none of them were man of God or living souls of God. They walked in and got their, whatever it was, accusations or allegations dropped, and they walked out with whatever it is they wanted, because they were not persons, and they let the judge know that. I was witness to a situation in December when one of the guys that comes to our assembly put his problems in with Queen's Bench Division, right? And when he walked in, the judge was already there sitting down on the altar, right? And after a couple of minutes, he says, I've got to leave on a point of law, and walked out with the excuse that he forgot to put his wig on. The judge was there as a man, right? And he'd give such and such the opportunity to act as a man. But he didn't act as a man, he acted as a person. So the judge stood up and thought, I've got to get my different jurisdiction hat on, and walked out and then come back within 5 minutes. But he did give him 3 opportunities to go, because he looked out the door like that 3 times. No, he's still there, so he must be a person. And he actually said to him, do you want this hearing do you want this court to deal with this hearing or not? And he asked him 3 times. What he should have said is absolutely not. You haven't got the power. So, yes, they do know this, but we've got to learn how it works. And slowly and surely we're getting the mechanics behind the way that Queen's Bench Division works. One of them is to, first of all, introduce yourself as a living soul of God's. How can any bank break the law of usury and put any liability on a living soul, son of God, who has God's power of attorney? Because we all have God's power of attorney. It tells you in there, you are to be as gods. Not you are gods. You are to be as gods, and you are to represent me on the earth.
I agree with that, David. I mean, the amount of people that have mortgages would suggest that they're getting away with it pretty much. But they're not.
Who's used this? Who's used this? Who's studied the Bible? Out of all the people I've seen, I mean, I've seen lots of them. The Veronica Chapman, I mean, crikey, she's been to my house a few times, and I've been to hers. Let's have a look. John Harris, Rob Bollocks, Rob Freeman, and all these people, not one is used this. But when you use this, they do Do they not go quiet when you use this?
Dave, can I just ask, have you heard, I know you follow the work of Case of Gaia a bit.
Absolutely, yeah.
Have you heard recently of this guy called Michael McLean who's had an amazing victory that fought over in America?
No, will you tell us about it?
I don't know it in depth, but he was basically, I don't know the background, but he was in prison because of his beliefs. He basically lost the legal name, which is what Case of Gaia, but he kind of like backs up. And he was in prison and he had a hearing and he basically stood before the judge, and when he got in there, he knew that the judge knew that he knew what was going on, and apparently it set a precedent because they actually brought his clothes. He'd been incarcerated and they brought his clothes, and apparently they never do that.
I did listen to it.
They know that you're going to be let off.
Yeah.
He didn't even know that himself, but they let him off. And it was because he lost this legal name thing, and apparently he's been in prison compared to all the prisoners. It's been fantastic. Actually, he's been there for like a month, and he's been compared to them.
Yeah, all the prisoners have stopped working from what I heard.
This is the precedent case, and apparently it's really, I speak to this guy, I'm going to get him on the show, but apparently he's really breaking down.
Well, that's the only thing you've got on us, that legal person fictional name. And when we give it to them back, they've got it back. And I'm not giving it any more of my life, but there is that danger of, because it says there, in there, that's from their dictionary, that there's two ways you can have that civil death, and that's either join a monastery or become an outlaw. Now, why do you think they're building 70 prisons in this country for 2,000 people per prison? Why do you think that is? It's not for flaming people who aren't paying speeding fines. That's all I'm saying. I mean, got to be very wary of these adversaries of God's law. They don't want to lose their grip on you, and that's one of the ways they can get shut of the people who have that civil death, because that is a civil death. Stop using it in that surname, you're having a civil death. And if you haven't got the protection of joining a monastery, house of God, that's worrying that, because what they're saying is they don't know whether that outlaw is going to be a peaceful man, right, or one that's going to cause murder, rape, thieving and all that sort of stuff. They don't know that. So that's the thing I'm wary of. I mean, I've looked at civil death a few times over the last 4 years. I won in Frankfurt over the last 4 years, and when I first found out about it, and I went, whoa, look at that. I'm on a bit of a wire here, you know, which way. And then I started reading this. It's only a few months ago, before Christmas, started reading it. And it was because of habeas put that on the internet, and I went, I'm going to go get a copy. Got a copy of that. Next minute, started reading that properly. Frank?
I agree with what you're saying there about the law. My research is very similar to yours. We're a vessel for the soul. Now, the vessel is an interesting word because it comes in with maritime law. Now, as kids, we're called master. Now, captain of is a master. So if you go to court and say, well, I'm Master Frank Willis, you want to say your face is that?
Yeah, but if you say, I'm Master Frank Willis, and God is the owner.
Exactly.
Because there can only be one owner of everything, and that's God. Because what else created everything? You can't say it was man created all this. Absolutely not. Man created gold, he created air, he created the clouds, the rain. No. It's something which is bigger and better and incomprehensible to us, whatever's created all this earth and the heavens. So we call it God. Somebody pointed out earlier on, the real word is Yahweh. Well, fine, Yahweh. God cannot be named. You can't name something as supreme as that, oh, that's God. No, it's our interpretation of something that we cannot ever know or describe. So we put a name on it, whether it be Yahweh, whether it be Jehovah, Well,
Didn't they give him 72 names?
there's loads. So you can't... There's the system coming in again, you see, giving it a name so we can categorise it and tax it. That's me finished.